Stone Cold Prose, Building Better Words.
Today we're going to look at the plague of the 21st century, despondency. How we get there, why we stay there, and how we can escape. Hi guys, welcome back to Stone Cold Prose, where we build better words, better thoughts, and better men. I'm Miles Watson, novelist and author of numerous award-winning series, including Cage Life, Sinner's Cross, and The Chronicles of Magnus. I worked in Hollywood for 12 years, law enforcement for another 10, and now I break it all down and build it back better. So let's get into this with a passage from my journal from the year 2017. The day was a slow one. I couldn't wait to rock it out of work, but when I got home, I didn't have anything to eat that I wanted, so I foolishly went to the diner. I am almost always disappointed by their food, and today was no exception. I came home in a restless, bad temper. As a result, I had no choice but to head over to the gym. I did 37 minutes on the elliptical machine, then did a few short rounds on the heavy bag, but by that point I was exhausted. Spirit willing, flesh weak. But it felt good. I'm still not in what you'd call a happy humor, but when am I happy nowadays? The frustration I feel over my life and career saps me on a daily basis. More and more I want to escape, but where would I go and what would I do when I got there? Now, if you don't mind, pretend you're a forensic pathologist and take a scalpel to this passage, to my soul. Go ahead, really look at it, dissect it. Now, I don't know what you see, but here's my take in 2024. The first sentence indicates boredom and discontent. The rest are full of self-criticism, disappointment, powerlessness, and desperation. The one positive comment, that punching the heavy bag felt good, is like seeing a raisin in about 10 pounds of dough. If I wanted, and you had the desire and the patience, I could bury under countless pages of identical gloom from that time period. In 2017, I was in the pit of despair, the slough of despond, the black hole of Calcutta, mentally fucked. Depression is a weird thing. My entire life, I thought that depression meant sadness. I had no idea that depression, real depression, is more like a chronic illness than a case of the deep blues. It makes you feel like utter, complete shit. The sadness is just a side effect of the physical misery, the numbness, the weakness, the anxiety, the nausea, the insomnia. When my neurologist told me after a long battery of tests and an MRI that there was nothing wrong with me physically, that I was just depressed, my main reaction was surprise. Me? Depressed? How could that be? My life on paper looked pretty damn good. I was living in the city I had always wanted to reside in, Los Angeles. Against all odds, I had broken into the entertainment industry and was working on big shows and making more money than I had ever made in my life. My debut novel had collected 2 awards and was in contention for several others. I got to work with enormously talented artists and meet actors and athletes and celebrities, many of whom I'd idolized as a kid. Friends and family were down the street. I lived in a clean, quiet, safe neighborhood in Burbank. I could swim outdoors in February, for God's sake. In theory, I was living the dream. But as Homer Simpson so wisely observed, in theory, communism works. In theory. Now, I'm a writer by trade and by passion and by identity too. I'm an imaginative person. I'm at my happiest when I'm creating something. It might be a historical or a genre novel. It might be a short story. It might be a screenplay or even a graphic novel. I don't discriminate. I'm bad at a lot of things. I'm good at a few, and I'm meant to do precisely one. I know this. And yet the pressures and the seeming necessities of life constantly interpose themselves between me and my muse. Now, in this, of course, I'm no different than most others. In the matrix in which we are condemned to exist, the demands required simply to keep a roof over our head and food in our belly occupy most of our time and energy and thought, leaving only crumbs for our passions. But a human soul is very much like the human body it occupies. If you don't feed it, it withers and dies. Scraps won't do. This is the paradox of modern existence. To remain human and not degenerate into Morlocks, mere office or factory drones out of a Mike Judge movie, it's necessary to feed said soul. And yet at any given moment, it's more likely to find us paying bills, sitting in traffic, staring at the ceiling, or standing in line somewhere. There seems to be time for everything in life except the things that really matter. Now, you'll recall that I used the word powerlessness to describe how I felt. But in regards to my own behavior, the proper appellation is actually passivity. The attitude I'd adopted toward my own life by then was a resigned one. I meekly, tiredly, sadly accepted a situation that had sucked the enthusiasm right out of me. And even when I tried to take action in the form of exercise, it was in a posture of submission, of reaction, rather than assertiveness and strength. Now here's a non-rhetorical question. How the fuck did that happen? It's well known that when one wishes to serve fresh frog legs, one takes live frogs and places them in a pan of lukewarm water on a stove, and then, by installments, turns up the heat to the boiling point. If properly executed, this method will kill the frogs in so subtle a manner that they will never even try to escape, but will sit quiescently until they're cooked all the way through, dead. It's the same with people. Had I been suddenly and violently assailed by circumstance, I would have grasped that I was under attack, and I would have either fought back or run away, like a frog already thrown into boiling water, right? You go in, you go out. But life is a subtle opponent, and opted to gradually turn up the flame, so that I was quite content to stew in my own juices until it was very nearly too late to save myself. Now, I moved to LA in 2007, and the years that followed were hard, but my situation was always improving. 2017 was for me the year in which I got boiled. Life fed me just enough to keep me on my feet, but starved me of what I needed to thrive. And the deeper I went into the year, the less return I seemed to get on my investments of time. The less inspired I felt, the less productive I became. My energy waned, and with it, my fitness. I didn't want to look at myself in the mirror anymore. I wallowed in denial. Things were hot, sure, but not hot enough for me to jump out of the frying pan. That was the way I saw it, and in the meantime, I got cooked. Now, think for a moment. Setting aside the obvious, food, water, shelter, sex, and family, what is it that you feel you cannot live without? The thing or things you do which trigger a sense of happiness, contentment, satisfaction, and pleasure. The things without which life seems pointless, dull, or even painful. Well, for me, it's writing and being creative. I need those things to live, and yet in 2017, I did almost nothing creatively because I allowed myself to believe that adult responsibility trumped the innermost needs of Miles Watson, the human being. In our society, it's an easy mistake to make because we're trained from infancy to associate financial success with happiness and even virtue. It's a bullshit ethos, probably invented by Satan in one of his more ingenious moments. But it's hard not to drink it in with your mother's milk. In this case, it wasn't until my body began to strike back at me for neglecting my spirit that I grasped how hot the temperature of the water was around me. Positive actualization is a real thing, but so is its inversion. The heavenly courses we set for ourselves we can follow if we believe that we can follow them. But the hells we imagine, the disappointments, the frustrations, the left-handed compromises, they can also be willed into existence. If there's a will to power, there's also a will to powerlessness. And the first step in overcoming it is recognizing it exists. That we all have a tendency to convince ourselves that shit is sugar, that theory is practice, that communism works. A moment came in the spring of 18 when I confessed to myself that the water around me was boiling and the time had come for me to jump clear. Now, fate did give me a shove in the right direction by getting me laid off from a job that was poisoning my soul. But getting back to who I had been before I'd hit the water in the first place was another matter entirely. It actually began a month or so before the layoff, when I forced myself to go back to the gym. It sounds trivial, but the hour I spent there every day went a long way towards sweating out not only the actual toxins I was absorbing into my skin every day at the effects shop working on Walking Dead, but the spiritual toxins I had accumulated over the previous year. The truth is, however, that whether my workouts were effective or not on a fitness level, they represented a crucial change in my way of thinking and behaving. Failure is a habit, and when I accepted that basic fact, I accepted that success was a habit too and changed mine. took a long time, but I got back to where I needed to be by concentrating on making time religiously for the things that gave me a sense of pleasure and purpose. Slowly, gradually, I took back my power. But I'm very conscious of the fact I could lose it again. See, folks, if there's one thing that Hollywood taught me growing up, it's that the climactic battle and the happily ever after, which follows the slaying of the dragon, or the destruction of the Death Star, or the defeat of Voldemort, or the destruction of the One Ring. But in real life, our only true climactic battle is the one we lose, the one in which we die. All the battles prior to that merely lead to more battles. I once described life as a jetway, but it's really more of a gauntlet, a trial by combat, an elimination tournament in which every victory is followed by a fresh challenge. The idea that one decisive moment will turn us around for good, steer us into ever after territory, is crap. As Hannibal Lecter told Clarice Starling, you'll have to earn it again and again, the blessed silence. Because it's the plight that drives you, seeing the plight, and the plight will not end, ever. The brutal fact is that the chef is always beneath us, holding his pan and saying with a smile, come on in, the water's fine. Whether we go swimming is up to us. Folks, if you enjoyed today's video, please remember to like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell, and remember to check out my books on Amazon. The link is in the description. I drop scripted content every Friday at 3 p.m., shorts every day, and unscripted rants whenever rage moves me to do so. See you next time, and until then, stay cold and stay safe.